Mr. Butt, I caught up with you finally. I've been obviously trying to get an interview for some time about your situation in the Department of Education. Things are moving very fast, it appears, behind the scenes, and also with the reaction from the public. Has your position changed at all?
No, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and if I did, perhaps it would change, but I have no idea. I'm glad the public are taking this to their hearts, especially the library issue, because I think it's a matter that needs resolving.
I mean, you resigned over this. Do you think other people should have done the same thing?
Well, that's up to other people, but I've been in the Department of Education for 3 or 4 years, and every year we had to look at budget cuts as they were imposed on us. And every year we looked at the position of student fees as to whether they were viable to introduce tuition fees. And every year we said no, and I was one of those supported not bringing in tuition fees. This year we were faced with the choice, after all the other cuts, of very little being left to cut. And it was either a question of maybe student fees or cutting what we did, or what has been proposed, which is the library service, the primary language course, set courses, and the early years education, which I feel very strongly about. And given that choice, I thought we had no choice but to impose some sort of student fees. The student fees that were to be imposed could have been along the lines of, say, $2,000 or $2,500 per year for all students, and that would have brought in an income after 3 years of £3 million coming in regularly. And that £3 million coming in would have been enough to maintain all the other services, the ones that are being cut at the moment, and also making sure that primary and secondary education continue without too much effect on them.
Well, you put some more questions down for the next sitting, haven't you?
I have done, yes.
Can you tell us what you're going to ask?
It's not really fair to do so as yet, because I don't think the department even know about them themselves. But basically I'm going to ask about the early years strategy of the government. What priority did the government give to children in the early years, particularly those who are vulnerable, children who have special needs, etc. Because that was what the original preschool service was designed to do, to capture those people, the vulnerable children and those who had special needs.
Talking to yourself and now David Collisu, who's basically said the same thing, that there was another option on the table that was put forward by the finance people and Mr. Tier, and it was the minister who declined to look at that option. Do you concur with that?
Well, the option of putting in student tuition fees has been there for several years and has been turned down. Mr. Tier didn't give us the option, but I do know that Treasury did say that if they were brought in, there would be a form of an amnesty for this next year, so there'd be no cuts needed for this year. And then, as the money comes in future years, from the children from the students who are going to pay the $2,000, $2,500, then there would be sufficient to cover other services. I'd just like to say that this student fee would have been brought in with a safety net for those who couldn't afford it, and with a loan scheme if possible. That was one of the plans. But the minister, yes, didn't agree with that. He thought that was not the way to go, and that was his decision, which he had the right to make.
It's been rumbling on now for some time, and it doesn't appear to be going away. Do you think there will be yet a U-turn on this?
I have no idea, because as of the week before the Tynwald debate last month, it was just total closure of everything and with no other options. And now I hear there's money being made available to perhaps provide some sort of private nursery education. I'm worried about that, because I don't think that private providers, no matter how good they are, will be targeting the vulnerable and those with special needs, because they are more costly than average. So I'd have to wait and see what they do provide, or actually end up with after the consultation.
Do you think Mr. Karen should go?
No, I'm not saying that at all. The minister has a right to decide what he wants to decide, and I even in the Tynwald debate the next day I actually said that it's wrong to say to a minister, you cannot make the decision. But I do think he made the wrong decision from my point of view, because I know a lot about early years education, the effects on children's brains and their development, and how important it is to capture them early on in their lives, because we know that once you get children into a safe and comfortable regime where they're getting education and being able to socialise better, that saves a lot of money in the future. I think the figures say that for every £1 you spent on early years education, you'll save between £7 and £11 in later life. And also you save on education, you save on health, and you save on people going into the criminal justice system and having poor quality lives. And that's why I think it's so important we maintain the preschool education.